This is 2022's Spiderhead. Warning, spoilers ahead. We open up to what sounds like God talking to Ray, and he informs him that he's a criminal who agreed to volunteer for the Spiderhead program. Ray agrees to let Abnesty administer the drug, and he starts the test. Abnesty tells him a joke that's so bad that Ray should be locked up for laughing at it. Obviously, the Spiderhead drug makes people have a bad sense of humor. Finally, Abnesty informs Ray that the next statements aren't jokes. They read him facts about death and genocide, and Ray continues to laugh. Abnesty seems to like the results he's seeing, and he tells Ray that he's free to go. Abnesty high-fives Mark, and they put a gold star on Ray's test results. After that, we see a private plane flying over the water as it approaches the private island where Spiderhead is being tested. Abnesty hops out of the plane, and he heads into the research center where he gets ready to start another day of testing. Meanwhile, Jeff is woken up to start his day of testing, and he heads to the dock where he's blindfolded and taken out with Abnesty. Jeff agrees to let them give him the drug, and he takes off his blindfold. Later, Jeff heads back to the facility and he runs into Lizzy, who's fairly new to the installation. The two of them seem to get along extremely well, but when she asks how the N40 drug was, he explains that he's coming down off the drug that controls his verbal usage. Jeff's a little upset about it though, since he had something that he was going to say to her, but she assures him that they've got nothing but time. This drug's creating a paradise where there isn't one. Apparently, he thought he was looking at beautiful skies and flowers in a field, but it was actually a construction site with no plant life. So this is how they plan to control us when all the nature's gone. That night, Jeff has a flashback to his life before the Spiderhead project, and we see that he had a girlfriend. One night, he hops in the car with his little brother after a night of partying and drinking, and he ends up crashing into a tree. Needless to say, this is probably why he's stuck at the facility now. In the morning, Abnesty works out and reads his morning material before getting ready for more research. In fact, everyone's handling their routines and responsibilities. Eventually, Jeff and Heather show up for their testing with Abnesty, and there's a clear difference between the two states of mind. The first question for each of them is to rate each other on a scale of 1 to 10. I'd be a little worried about saying that to someone's face depending on what drug they're giving them. They might not like the answer. Luckily for Jeff, they hadn't given her any yet. When it comes time to administer the drugs, the two subjects really start to find each other attractive. She rated him as a 5 before, now she's jumping his bones. This drug could make millions. After getting it on like wild animals in a Discovery Channel documentary, they tell each other that they love each other. Okay, I take back what I said earlier. Billions. This drug would make billions. Mark thinks that this is gold star worthy, but Abnesty thinks that they need to watch how they come down from the drug. They stop injecting the drug, and Jeff and Heather start feeling odd as they come down. Later, Jeff goes to help Lizzy make food, but as she explains how she used to be a robber, he seems to be listening in a whole different way, almost like he's just distracted. Eventually, he brings a snack to Heather, and the tension between them is palpable. The next day, Jeff heads in for testing, and Sarah comes in with him. They waste no time in administering the drug, and they get it on even wilder than Jeff did with Heather. I really hope that they tested everyone before bringing them in, or at least hopefully they have a drug for all that stuff too. Later, Jeff and Mark meet up so he can refill his drug pack, and he warns Jeff that he might want to be more careful with his pack when getting it on. Before Mark leaves, Jeff asks to be taken off of food detail, and Mark agrees. Later, Jeff heads into the control room with Abnesty and Mark as they watch Sarah and Heather meet in the testing room. Abnesty gives Jeff the decision on giving either girl a drug that acts as an agitator. Jeff has trouble choosing, and he reminds Abnesty that he was part of the test batch of that drug. He assures Abnesty that he has no preference or feelings towards either of them anymore, and Abnesty finds this interesting. He also really wants results for the N40 love drug, and he dismisses the girls. Before Jeff leaves, Abnesty asks Jeff what he wants more than anything in the world, and he has one simple answer: to go back. I can definitely say that this movie does a good job of making you feel the weight of every little decision the characters make. I haven't been this invested in a movie in a little while. Later, Jeff plays in the main rec room, and Lizzy comes over with snacks. Jeff gets ready to say something to her, but the guards call him over to take him out for his free time. He calls Emma to apologize for everything again, but she doesn't answer. That evening, Jeff dresses up as a makeshift Santa, and he stops by Lizzy's room to give her a stocking as a present. The next day, Jeff heads in for testing, and Rogan comes in to work with him. Remember, it's a love drug, or at least a lust drug at times. Jeff puts 2 and 2 together, and he absolutely refuses to acknowledge. That was probably the biggest scare for him since he got in the facility. Abnesty assures him that that's not what's going on here. And after having them sit in the room in silence for a long time, Jeff pieces together what just happened. Everyone's screwing everyone. He barges into the control room and finds Heather just had the same dilemma that he had with her and Sarah. Everyone's sleeping with everyone. Abnesty has to remind Jeff that he's here as a privilege, and he points out that he's done so much to ensure that he enjoys as many freedoms here as possible. In return, he has to agree to the previous arrangement to follow through trials. After his heartfelt speech, Jeff and Rogan are pulled in for the same situation with Sarah. Afterwards, Abnesty notices how uneasy Mark feels about some of their tactics, and Abnesty tells him to enjoy the weekend before coming back to things. That night, Jeff vacuums the common area, and Abnesty enjoys some music up in his own room. Then he injects himself with his own dose of N40, and the music hits him so much differently than before. Isn't that like a cardinal sin of science to use your own test drug? Later, Jeff explains what the agitator drug felt like to him while he eats with Lizzy, and she reaches out to comfort him. She tells him that he's a good guy, and he finds some comfort in her words. She tells him that she knows how he asked to get taken off of snack duty, and she assumes that it was because of her. He assures her that the testing has been messing with his mind, but he wants her to know that she's his comfort in this place. On Monday morning, Abnesty has Mark fix his own drug pack, and he tells Mark that his way of facing responsibility for their product is by taking it himself. Suddenly, Jeff shows up for his day of testing, and he notices that Abnesty has a drug pack. They head downstairs to wait for Heather, but when she shows up, Abnesty tells Jeff that he won't have the chance to decide this time. I can't lie, I kind of want to see what the big deal is about this agitator drug. Now I'm starting to think that Abnesty might be ready to finally lose his cool. He takes a step out to grab some coffee, and he's talking to Lizzy now. He's about to pull some heartstrings here. Why's he gotta mess with Lizzy? Apparently there's a secret there that no one else should know about. When Abnesty goes back into the control room, he gives Jeff one last chance to agree to the trial, and after getting threatened to be taken back to state, he acknowledges. Abnesty has Mark administer the agitator, and Heather starts getting sick and aggressive. Suddenly, Heather's drug pack malfunctions from her banging around, and the drug floods her system. Heather ends up ending things, and Abnesty and Mark rush into the room. Abnesty doesn't realize that he drops his keys on his way out though, and Jeff takes this chance to read his notes. He finds that Abnesty is the head of the company, and there's only one other drug that he's getting ready to finish testing, B6. Suddenly, Abnesty remembers that he left Jeff in the control room, and he rushes back to find the drawer locked, keys on the ground, and Jeff in the chair still. This was a potential factor though, wasn't it? When testing drugs, death is always a possible side effect. That's why when you watch commercials for diarrhea, they say that a possible side effect is death. Is it worth getting rid of the runs? How badly do you want relief? While Ray cleans up the mess, Mark starts really questioning if they've crossed a line, and Abnesty tells him that he should have questioned that way before they crossed other lines. He reminds him that if they come after him, they'll take Mark down too, and he sends him to clear his head. Later, he goes to check in on Jeff, and he tries to assure him that all of this is for the greater good in the end. As a way to make things easier, they administer G46 to each other, and they're essentially like stoners with the giggles. The two of them share the most tragic backstories, but all they can do is laugh about it. Abnesty turns the dosage down after a while, and he explains that he's stuck here just as much as Jeff is. You sure about that? Being married to your work and being a prisoner are a little different if you ask me. The next day, Abnesty starts testing a phobia drug on Lizzy, and Abnesty loves the results that he's seeing. When Lizzy gets out, she tells Jeff all about the new drug, and she thinks that it's the worst one they've tested so far. Lizzy starts wondering if being here is any better than her time at state, and she wonders why they keep going forward with the testing. Is the freedom they experience really worth the stuff they have to go through? Finally, Jeff remembers what he's been trying to tell Lizzy this whole time. It turns out that his memory has been wrong this whole time, or at least the way we saw it. The reason Emma doesn't answer him when he calls on Fridays is because she was in the car with him too on that drunk night. Emma died in the crash as well. Not from the crash though. It was the explosion afterwards that did it. Well, this is depressing. But what better way to connect with Lizzy than to admit that you're here for 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter? And in the next scene we see, Jeff and Lizzy are smiling from ear to ear. Feel like we're about to get some juicy gossip. Jeff starts talking about what everyone did to get here, and Lizzy looks worried. What did she do? While they're talking, Abnesty pops up for some ice cream, and he feels like something is off between them. When he goes back to look at the security cameras, he spots that Jeff has a thing for Lizzy, and he knows that this is his way to really test him. The next day, Jeff comes in for more testing, and Abnesty gets him ready for one last trial. When he reveals that they're going to give the agitator drug to Lizzy, Jeff refuses to be a part of this, but Abnesty tells him to think it over for a night. After Jeff leaves, Abnesty tells Mark to double his dose, and Mark goes to Jeff's room to fill it. Once Mark is in his room, Jeff closes the door and puts Mark on the spot. Jeff tells him that B6 is the drug Abnesty cares about, and he wants to know about it and why Mark works with Abnesty. Of course, Mark just thought that working with a genius like Abnesty would mean changing the world, but now he's too far down the rabbit hole, or so he thought. Jeff is really trying to sway Mark here, and Mark's so conflicted that it just might work. The next day, Jeff comes to the control room to find Mark called out today, and Abnesty gives Jeff the control for the agitator drug. Jeff tells Abnesty that he's standing by his decision to not be part of this, and Abnesty starts to lose his cool. Abnesty tells Lizzy to open up about why she's really here, but when she refuses, Abnesty reads her file. Eventually, Lizzy admits that she killed her baby by forgetting the child in a hot car for 3 hours. Lizzy tells Jeff to do the experiment because nothing they do to her will be more painful than waking up without her baby. Jeff turns up the dosage, but it turns out that the phone is actually paired with Abnesty's drug pack. Jeff turns up the dosage on the agitator drug, and he explains that Mark is coming back with the cops. Smooth. Very smooth. And apparently B6 was the main drug that he was testing. You want to know what B6 does? It makes people complacent. The only reason it wasn't given a gold star was because they needed the ultimate test, to see if Jeff would hurt someone he loved because Abnesty told him to. Well, I'd say it failed. Abnesty thinks that this is the future that the world needs, but Jeff wants him to admit all of his wrongdoings. You want to know the really messed up part? Jeff was actually free 7 months ago, and Lizzy was freed a week ago. I'd say that the only way Abnesty comes out on top now is to kill Jeff. Jeff has Abnesty unlock the front door, but as Jeff goes to leave, Abnesty pulls out a knife and attacks him. Abnesty ends up releasing all of the agitator drug into Lizzy's system, and his own drug pack malfunctions when he slams against the stairs. When Jeff sees Lizzy try to end things, he rushes over to save her and he gets there just in time. Meanwhile, Abnesty tells the whole facility that Lizzy and Jeff are threatening to send them all back to state if they escape, so now the whole facility is after them. Meanwhile, Abnesty flies away in his plane just as Jeff and Lizzy make it to the dock, but his drug pack is still malfunctioning. As Mark makes his way out to the facility with the police, Jeff and Lizzy hop in a boat to escape. Finally, with the mix of drugs coursing through Abnesty's system, he ends up crashing into the island's hillside. Meanwhile, Jeff and Lizzy enjoy their first moments of freedom as they ride back to the mainland. Then, the credits roll. The premise for this one has been done in different ways, but the execution here was what really sold it. Give it a shot. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this one. Comment what you think I should watch next, and I'll see you in the next video.